Morning, happy St. Patrick's Day, and I'm wearing the green. I even have green nail polish on, so
Very special.
I'm definitely in the spirit. But it's great to see so many people here this morning who are engaged and who are staying engaged, because that is the secret to the success of the last election, is the level of engagement that everybody had. It's something the media didn't understand, I think, until it was all over. Now they're starting. Yeah, they may not understand it fully, but I think before, when we saw a lot of citizens who were involved were not taken seriously by the media, and I think at least now they know there's something going on. And perhaps what they don't realize is that it continues to go on even after the election. It's not just about election night; it's about governing, and at the state level here in Iowa, it has to be about winning the Senate, because all of the good things that your representative has done and that others in the House have done, many of them will not make it through the Senate. And there's some need for some changes there on a number of the issues we talked about: collective bargaining, marriage. You go right down the list, and a lot of good ideas stop in the Iowa State Senate. So wanted to talk to you a little bit. I thought there's a few issues you might want to know about, at least with respect to my role as Governor Branstad's legal counsel. I hope you were happy to see that the governor joined the lawsuit to stop Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that soon after taking office. Now there are 27 states that are challenging Obamacare. Before the election, I think at one point there was something like 15. Well, once you get over half, it really does make a big difference. And 27 states, it's several cases, and they are winding their way through the process in the appellate courts, and we expect they will go to the Supreme Court for expedited review, because the government takeover of health care violates the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. Congress can only regulate interstate commerce. They can't force people to buy a certain kind of insurance or face a penalty, and that's the basic premise of Obamacare. That is how they got around. They say it's not universal. Well, that's how they accomplished it, and the Constitution does not allow them to do that. And it's up to the governors and attorneys general of the different states to join together. And so Governor Branstad is one of the 27 on that lawsuit. And of course, I'm working on it as well. Florida is the lead state on the lawsuit, and they're doing a great job. But you'll want to continue to watch that lawsuit, because now you're part of it. Another issue I'd like to talk about, I think you saw that the governor appointed 3 people to the Supreme Court to fill the vacancies that were created after the retention election this last fall. And I think one thing we need to continually talk about is the fact that 3 Supreme Court justices were not retained is unprecedented in the history of the so-called merit selection process. That has never happened before, that 3 get voted out all at once. And I think that sent a signal that Iowans realize that process is not working anymore. It's not working. The process is broken. Now, the governor still had to work within the law and within the process when he chose his nominees. So as you saw, he only got 9 names from the Judicial Nominating Commission. He had to choose from among the 9. If he did not choose from among the 9, then the Chief Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court got to pick his colleagues. So as you can see, that puts the governor in a bit of a box. Unless he thinks the Chief Justice will do a better job than he will, then he needs to pick the 3. And he did go ahead and pick the best 3 out of the group of 9. And I think that just highlights the need for reform. And there's several things that could be done for reform, and I think it's up to the people to work through a process to see what Iowans support. Some states have judicial elections. Those haven't been well received in Iowa, I would say. There are some people who support them, but in other states there seems to be more support. Now, a judicial election would be a situation where you would vote for a judge just like you vote for your representative or senator. There'd be a campaign, and you could choose which one you want. Then there's an option. Some people talk about reforming the current system, tinkering with the statute. And then there's a third option, which would require a constitutional amendment. And that would be to go, and the third one I would say is what Governor Branstad has come out in support of. The third one is where we would go to a system where it's just like basically the federal model with retention. So the governor would choose who he believed was the best nominee, and then the Senate could choose whether they wanted to confirm the nominee or not. But we would still keep a retention vote, so that the people would also have that opportunity when the judges or justices came up for retention. the reason we like this idea is because it brings maximum accountability and transparency to the process. That's part of what's wrong with the judicial selection process right now. I just wonder in this room, does anybody know anyone who's on the judicial nominating commission for the state who chooses our Supreme Court justices?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Who do you know?
Guy Cook.
Okay, yep, so he's from
But I knew him
Illinois,
in
yeah.
college, and so I can't imagine he gets to pick Supreme Court justices. But
That party.
but he knew me in college, so he probably can't imagine I get to do
Yeah.
that.
That's a good testimony right there, huh?
It is. Well, I'm just saying, with transparency, when somebody comes up for confirmation in the Senate, you know who to call in the Senate. You know how to work the process. Right now, it's very hard to know what goes on in that room. They made a good step of televising the interviews, but I think the more we can have public input, the more we can have transparency, the better off we all are. Because that, as you know, many have said that commission is controlled by certain special interests rather than being something that represents the people. And under our form of government, the best way to represent the people is to go through the elected officials because they answer directly to you every 2 or 4 years, depending on whether it's a senator or the governor or a representative. So I just want to bring that up because now that the nominations are over, sometimes there can be a tendency to move on to the next issue, and I think this is an issue that will require long-term reform, and it's important for the best interests of the state that we continue to keep an eye on what's going on and come to a consensus, or if we can, about the best way to change the process moving forward, whether it's a constitutional amendment that would bring more accountability to the process, or whether we should do some statutory changes to try to open up the process a little bit. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is there's something that people aren't talking about right now, and I just thought I would throw it out there for you so you can keep an eye out for it over the next few months. But all the districts in Iowa are going to change, and people aren't talking about that. I just wanted to mention it because you are very engaged, and you are people who make a big difference, and I want you to know that those districts will make a big difference as to whether Eastern Polk County and some of your neighboring areas, what your representation will look like, because Iowa has a very different redistricting system from that of other states, and who knows what the district lines are going to look like when the map comes down. So I would just encourage you to look at that. Last I heard, the map is supposed to come down at the end of the month, and it's very hard to know when the legislature is actually going to get to it because we have so many budgeting and spending issues and other issues the legislature is working their way through. A little hard to predict when it will actually be voted on, but when that map comes down, I think you'll want to look at that map and analyze it and see if that, see if there's any input you want to provide to your elected representatives. And then I would also, those maps, our redistricting is so different. Often 2 incumbents will be thrown into the same district. So that's unusual. Most states don't have that. It creates some real opportunities every 10 years when the map is redrawn. And so when that happens, you want to look and see what your candidates will be for perhaps some opportunities that might come open. Again, we won't know until the map comes out, but that's very important to the overall goal of winning seats in the Senate. We are so close in the Senate, but without a majority, a lot of these good policies that we've talked about this morning just don't have, well, some of them don't have a chance at all, although we always remain optimistic, and many of them will be watered down in order to get through the Senate so that they can become law. So those are the 3 things I wanted to mention to you, and I also just want to say thank you for everything you're doing, and it's so encouraging to see such a good group this morning. And I think it's your first meeting, isn't it?
This is number 1.
All right, so yeah.
This is number 1. I appreciate everybody coming, and
Yep.
please spread the word.